to this session. I would love to get the energy going because we're going to talk sport and leadership. So I would invite you to please stand up if you think sport has the power to change society. So sports believers, please stand up. Wow. Amazing. So please keep standing only if you think we're doing enough. Sport is doing enough. Sport is doing more than enough. We're done. Oh. All right. Did you see what happened here? There is a gap. There is a huge gap between potential of sport to really create a change and the action we're actually taking. And that's what we're going to do this morning with 1 hour together. We're going to have 3 sub-panels, one with the thinkers, one with the doers, and the third with amazing athletes, and with a special announcement at the end. So let's get started. Let's get started with the first panel, our thinkers. Introducing Xavier Guen, welcome. President of Outdoor Sports Valley, introducing McComb, President, Brand Lead of World Economic Forum, and Benjamin Aidan, Partnership Director at Protect Our Winter. Welcome. Thank you for being here with us. I would love to get started by giving you each the word to introduce the organization you're presenting today. So I'll start with you, Xavier. Can you tell us more about Outdoor Sports Valley?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. OSV means Outdoor Sports Valley, is the French association of the outdoor ecosystem. It gathers 400 members, a little bit more, with brands from all sizes, with retailers, with service providers. It's gathering more or less 10,000 employees and a turnover of roughly 5 to 6 billion euros.
Amazing. What about you, Michael? Can you tell us more about the World Economic Forum?
Yeah, so the World Economic Forum is a global organization dedicated to collaboration and provides insight and foresight to help move the world forward together, addressing different challenges across global economies. From a sports perspective, I'm here representing a report that the forum produced, an insight report called Sport for People and Planet. So we do hundreds of different reports and highlight reports throughout the year.
Amazing. So inviting the audience to check out the report if you haven't already. It's really interesting. It's called Sport for People and Planet. What about you, Benjamin? Can you tell us more about Protect Our Winter?
So, hello everybody. Good afternoon. Protect Our Winter has been founded in 2009 in the US by a snowboarder. Our mission is to mobilize the whole outdoor community. I'll get back into the community afterwards. Towards climate. So we're not into the biodiversity, we really focus into climate. And even though it was based in the US, now it's in Canada, in Japan, and in Europe, we're covering 10 different countries with an umbrella organization with Protect Our Winters Europe.
So that's quite a reach. I hope you can see why we call this panel the Thinkers, quite a lot of experience in different sectors. And I would like to start with you, Michael, to really frame this discussion and have a better understanding. Let's talk money. So sport is about $2.3 trillion economy, heading towards an $8.8 trillion. Most of people here in the room tend to think about it as culture, not economics. But what happens when you really change that frame? And who holds that power?
No, it's interesting when you think about sport, you often think about it as entertainment or something that you participate in, and it's a cultural phenomenon, it's a cultural force. And I think the interesting change of perspective is that when you can look at it as an economy, right? It's an enormous economy. As you said, 2.3 trillion today, on track for 3.5 trillion by 2030, and if projections hold, up towards 9 trillion by 2050. So, you know, the economy itself is today bigger than the global pharmaceutical business. The sport economy is almost as large as the global automotive industry. So it's a massive economy. And when you think about sport as culture, you think about communications and campaign and inspiration and events. But when you think about sport as an economy, then you would think about regulations and policy and governance and capital allocation. And so that change of perspective is quite important. The issue is that the sport economy is relatively immature and somewhat disconnected relative to other more mature economies of similar size. And because of that disconnection and fragmentation within the sport economy is at great risk of revenue degradation and loss of revenue over time. The risks are quite significant economically. You've got $500 billion of that $3 trillion at risk by 2030. So that's just in a few years, and $1.5 trillion at risk by 2050. So the economic risks are quite high. There's structural reasons for that. You've got, on the one hand, inactivity. Our lack of participation and just inactivity is eroding the participation base. And the other side, which is amplifying it, is the physical and environmental context is degrading. If you've got weather issues, climate issues, social lack of social inclusion and so forth, this is prohibiting people from participating. So these two structural risks are contributing to those potential revenue shortfalls of the economy. The actors that are playing a role in the sport economy kind of start with something that I think Benjamin will talk about a bit, is athletes, right? As witnesses and as advocates for change in sport. You've got events, the mega events like the Olympics or the Tour de France, of course, outweigh some of the other small events, but they share kind of a common responsibility. And we're seeing a lot of interesting change in events. You've got brands themselves, manufacturers with supply chains and operational platforms that are now, because of regulation, are often becoming much more sustainable, so they can pull those operational levers. And I think a couple of more that maybe are not talked about as much are federations, the rule book holders, very powerful in terms of the levers that they can pull. And lastly, capital and sponsors. The influence that their money, their influence in sponsoring events is enormous. And we're seeing a lot of that move in. It's a $52 billion industry that has maybe misunderstood its potential influence. So 5 levers, but they're not really joined up. And I think that's the biggest gap and the biggest opportunity.
Perfect. Thank you for that really framing and changing our perspective that sports has a lot of power, has a lot of economy. I would love to go back to that report you talked to us about. The World Economic Forum report proposes 3 critical pathways forward for the sector. Can you tell us what are they and what the real transaction is?
So the report has 3 main pathways that are considered the most impactful and viable for stimulating change in the sport economy. The first one, as I mentioned with brands especially, is just resource stewardship, resource use. This is the one where companies, manufacturers with large supply chains and so forth have real operational impact, and I'm sure Xavier can talk about that with Solomon and Amer. Materials, water, energy use, and so forth. And we're seeing a lot of great progress in this area, but there's obviously a lot more to do. We have examples like Decathlon with their rental revenue and reuse Rental revenue up 6 times over the last 3 years. Examples like Adidas, which is the vast majority now of their polyester material is from reclaimed or recycled sources. So that's important. And I think the sequence matters here, right? You've got a lot of examples, even just 5, 8 years ago, where companies were claiming sustainability performance, but weren't really delivering it in authentic and genuine ways, and they were being called out. And so the sustainability press release is increasingly a thing of the past, and people are really investing now in general operational improvement. So that's the first pathway. The second major one is cities themselves. Sport, probably like no other area, forces collaboration and alignment, right? When you see events like the Olympics come in, you have everybody really rallying and aligning, whether that's citizens or politicians or civil society. People can get aligned around a mega event or a sport force, which is difficult to do outside of sport, right? You see this with examples like Barcelona, with the waterfront there, last year, or in 24 with Paris and the river investment of $1.5 billion. Just amazing progress in a relatively short amount of time. So cities have this outsized potential for change when they associate with sport. But you don't need the Olympics necessarily. You see things like the Tour de France come in with the Grand Départ cities. They create cycling corridors, great mobility, signage, and other lasting effects. But we'll talk a little bit more about federations, because even though big events can have great change, there's still a lot of opportunity. So with the Tour, for example, even though they've certified more than 150 cities as cycle cities, which have lasting benefits, they still are not able to figure out how to not move teams around Europe and how to move spectators more sustainably. And so they're still contributing 200,000 tons of carbon dioxide every year. So this is something where we still have opportunities for mega events to do that. And the third one is capital. As I said, you've got sponsors increasing their visibility, and that's probably one of the biggest things to look at is the model of sponsorship and capital allocation to sport has largely been through sponsorship. And that's always been about visibility and reach and impressions and logo placement, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's worked for decades. It's just increasingly an incomplete model, because as there's now greater regulatory transparency through policies like the Green Claims Directive or CSRD, which is great. But you've also got a new generation of fans and participants who are very interested in the operational sustainability of events and assets, as well as the sponsors that are associated with that. So that kind of visibility is both an asset and a liability if that sustainable performance is not strong. The message here is that with sponsorship, we're moving into kind of a new era, and it's where sustainability is not bolted on, but it's sort of baked in to sponsorships at the contract level. You see that with sponsorships like the SAP F1 Mercedes team sponsorship, where sustainability was baked into the contract with carbon emissions and verifiable data and so forth. And then lastly, when you look at sponsorship at the social level, also an incredibly effective place for sponsors to be investing their money, because every dollar invested in grassroots sports and increasing, as I said, increasing that participation has a 4-time return. And World Bicycle Relief said every dollar invested, if a bicycle is involved, gives you 14 times the return. So these are amazing economic investment opportunities as sponsors and asset owners. So
yeah, thanks so much, Michael, for these examples. We'll get deeper into that, but I would love to go to Xavier to talk a bit about brands and manufacturers at the outdoor sector and how the efforts they're doing to really adapt to environmental transition in practice.
Sure. So first, maybe to introduce the topic, we can highlight that for the outdoor industry brands, manufacturers, the topic has been embraced already for many, many years, because as we are strongly connected to nature, to the mountain, we are really literally in the first row to witness the changes, the impact of the climate evolution. And that's why many of our members have already embraced those topics for years. At OSV, we have developed a toolbox to help them to engage in the transition with very simple tools that everybody knows, like life cycle analysis, carbon emission analysis, and so on, with a goal that every product that we put on the market has to be better than the previous one. So it's normal to work on the product since we are manufacturer, but not only. We had part of OSV Explore, which is one of our community events, a panel regarding the communication. How do we make sure that when we communicate to our consumers, when we invite them to connect with outdoor, we do it the right way? So one of our members gave the example, for instance, when they take a picture of somebody try running with a dog, the dog has a leash. When they take a picture of somebody with a tent in the nature, there is a refuge close to the tent. It's not in the middle of nowhere. It's a message to respect, protect the nature. And finally, you are talking about the events and how do we change the practice. OSV launched a project, Ordinary Project, together with Protect Our Winter, to encourage sponsor athletes to think on how we can practice our sports differently. So we had the first promotion of Ordinary Project, and that's also a way to make this change happening.
That's wonderful. So we're noting collaborations between organizations, but also really rethinking of the products and how we can really keep improving them way after way. Can you also talk to us about the challenges and the trade-off that the industry faces? Because they're trying their best, but I'm sure there are also challenges.
For sure, there is always a tension, because first, making our product better means innovation. Innovation means taking risk on product which very often have a component of performance, safety, durability. So how do we make sure that we manage this tension properly? It requires a lot of iteration, a lot of effort, a lot of investment. And one of the difficulties probably that is specific to our industry is that a lot of our brands are very small. We are talking about small companies, middle-sized companies, and those level of investment are very, very important. That's why, again, at OSV, we try to promote as a systemic approach, open innovation, collaboration, so that we can find solutions together.
Perfect. I'm really hearing a lot of collaboration happening, so maybe that's really the key for leaders. We also think that in sports, leaders should listen more in order to serve better, and that's exactly what you do at Protect Our Winter. So you did develop a really interesting approach with the communities in a participatory way. Can you talk to us more about that?
First, Protect Our Winter is made of communities. It's made of what we call alliances, marketing way. But it's made of, one, the creative, so photographers, videographers. Second, the scientists. We have around 30 to 50 scientists close to us. Athletes, very much. We have around 250 to 300 athletes close to us, and brands. And of course, we're trying to leverage them, and we leverage them from a very different way. For example, on brands, for the last European elections, we made a manifesto, and we had over 180 of our brands partners that sign up into a specific manifesto for a specific ask and everything. And more asks will come over the next month into with our Brussels office. On the athlete side, for example, if I have to give a story, it's a story of with the International Ski Federation. Some of the athletes were not happy with that was back in 23, with the way with the World Cup was organized there and everything. Came to us and say, what can we do? Can you help us out to put a letter, to put an open letter? And so we helped them out. He was signed by 500 athletes, but then the media caught it, and then it was followed by 40,000 signatures from the consumers.
Wow.
FIS by then was claiming to be climate positive. It was not the case, so at least it forced them to one hire a sustainability director, which is here today, by the way. And second, to set up a program. And now we keep on working with FIS, with Susanna, into moving things forward and everything. So that's on the athlete side. And then really on the community, it's because we're very much a grassroots organization. For example, Power France organized last year, at the end of last year, regarding the Olympics 2030, what we call the Citizenship Convention, which they recruited 30 to 50 citizens. They work for 3 weekends in a row to provide recommendations into how they would like the Olympics to be, and that we delivered at the Olympics into to the COJOP, to the organization committee in December. So that's the type of organization of the type of activation we do with the communities.
That's amazing because we're running away from assumptions and we're really actually going to the communities and asking them and getting their asks. I heard that the green mobility came out as a top ask from the local communities. So what are the main asks? Can you go through them and tell us how do you aim to achieve them?
So if I have to, like, of course we call it Protect Our Winters, but if you take a week in the mountains, which we're from, you've got pretty much, if you look into your carbon footprint of someone of a week, 15% come from the product. So that's all the work that Xavier and the whole OSV team is doing with the different brands, etc. 15% comes from the resorts, lodging, lifts, hotels, foods, etc. 66%, 60 to 70% of the footprint come from mobility. So the impact is huge. So that's the fact. Now, how do we do it? What we realize at Power, it's pretty much honestly what we do on a daily basis, is to connect the different people. Because you can have the resorts operator, but then you have the municipality that is running the bus, the trains, and everything, that are just not talking to each other. And I've got a resort that, for example, learned in April that there was a bus open for €2 to go to the resorts, but he learned it in April, at the end of the season. And that's the type of situation that we do, that we're trying to connect. So we've got, for example, Power UK is working a lot with tour operators to bring them, to push them to more trains. Power Scanix is working with resorts and everything. So the main thing is to give the consumer other ways, to facilitate other ways just to fly, to lower down that.
And sometimes it's as simple as please go talk to each other.
It takes a lot of time, trust me.
It takes a lot of time. Perfect. We did talk in this panel about mega events. So would you like to tell us a bit about how can mega events be a platform to really enhance and advocate for climate action?
On large events? Like big size events like World Championships, Olympics, etc. I'm going to quote a great philosopher called Spider-Man, which is saying, with great powers comes great responsibility. And I believe, we do believe that events organizers have a lot of powers. And there's 4 things they can do. One, they have a large audience, they have a lot of infrastructure, they have a large budget, a lot of people follow what they do. There's a lot of the things they can do into educating people. The amount of time we spend educating consumer into what is the carbon footprint, what can you do, what is how do you lower it down, how do you compensate, how do you, etc., etc. They have a lot of things they can do on that. Second is obviously to show the way by implementing and making it easy to go to large events, and we're working with some of them here in the audience. The third one is really into leaving a trace, leaving an heritage, like after the closing ceremony, what is left for all the people that live there for large events. And then the fourth one is to they have a large power into advocacy. For sure, if you walking into in Brussels with the organizer of the Olympics or a trail running race or a marathon race or world championships, it has a different meaning than just walking just like that.
Perfect. Maybe closing words from Xavier, but also Michael. What can sport leaders do?
I think from our side, I would put 2 dimensions. The first one is, again, improving always. And as you've underlined it, improving collectively. We have so many different sizes of companies that we really need the biggest one, the strongest one to set the direction. For instance, when a big brand insists to have a supplier turning into green energy, then it's beneficial for everybody. The second dimension, we want to invite more people to connect with the outdoor responsibly. Because we are convinced that connecting to the outdoor makes you a better person. There is rules, you cannot do anything, but it's good for everybody to connect to the outdoor, and that will be something very positive for humanity.
Amazing, thanks so much. What about you, Michael? Last words for a positive leadership for sports.
Yeah, I think leaders probably should focus on long-term thinking, first of all, and look at the future of the sport and address one of the areas that's going to be key to fueling the future of sport, which is inactivity. Right? We have increasing inactivity, and if you look at it's 28-30% of adult population now is inactive. It's growing, and this is not necessarily a health issue. This is for the sport economy. This is a demand destruction forecast. It's really quite dire. So I would say look at how can you create at the grassroots level greater participation, and rather than extracting value from people who are already active.
Perfect. What about you? 30-second last message for leaders.
Connect. I think the main thing is at the moment everybody is staying on their own lane. Might it be brands, might it be different operators within the sports, and this is really the time to connect and to get out of your specific lane.
Perfect. Time is up. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing the amazing insights. Let's encourage them all.